Left-handers make up about 10% of the world population. This group of people, though unique, are often faced with discrimination and stigmatization due to many age-long traditions that describe left-handedness as evil or sinister. As a result of social stigma, they have continuously been viewed with suspicion and persecuted across history, even in many African communities and other parts of the world. And despite this stigma, they remain undaunted as they celebrate their uniqueness every year on this very day, the 13th of August. And joining me to discuss this is the social inclusion and anti-stigma advocate, Bisola Miriam. Good to have you join us, Bisola Miriam. Now, I've seen situations where people don't collect things from people because they use their left hand, and these are left-handed people. In a world designed for right-handed people, tell us about the challenges that left-handed people face.
The primary challenge that left-handed people face is stigmatization, and this often comes from family members who are ignorant of the uniqueness of left-handed people face. Again, children who can't speak for themselves are also victims of this social stereotype against left-handedness. And so we have a situation where school children become victims of psychological disorders as a result of continuous forced hand switching coming from instructors, especially their teachers, and of course caregivers from home or in the schools.
So what impact does this have on a child, especially for those children who are being forced to switch from their left hand to their right hand?
The challenges are several, and I will state one or two. Stuttering and speech difficulty is one primary challenge that children who are coerced to use right hand face. If you force a child to use his or her right hand instead of the left hand that the child is naturally inclined to use.
Thank you for staying there, and we move straight to our next topic, which is International Left-Handers Day. International Left-Handers Day is a day to celebrate being left-handed and to raise awareness for the everyday challenges of being left-handed in a world designed for right-handers. The day also encourages businesses and governments to move more left-handed friendly and adopt everyday objects for left-handed people. Left-handed people use their left hands to carry out tasks that require the use of hands. About 10% of the world's population is left-handed. Despite this, most equipment and day-to-day articles are designed and manufactured for the use of right-handed people, those who use their right hands to perform tasks. The purpose of Left-Handers Day is to make the majority right-handers aware of the frustrations that left-handed people face while using devices designed for right-handed people. The day also encourages designers to think about the conveniences of those whose left hand is their dominant hand. Left-Handers Day is also sometimes known as International Left-Handers Day, celebrated today. And we have in the studio public affairs and social activist.
Social inclusion advocate.
Okay, social inclusion advocate, right? Bisola Obinyon.
Bisola Obinyon.
Good morning, Bisola.
Good morning.
A lot of corrections this morning. But we understand. Are you a left-handed person?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so can you tell us what your experience has been like?
Well, 70% not so good and 30% good. And do you need me to expatiate on that?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, growing up, I had a grandfather who, being a Muslim, he felt using the left hand to perform tasks, or especially when I need to serve him, was something he wasn't going to accept. So oftentimes, whenever I need to serve him, is either I get a spank or I get abused. And a number of times I became, in fact, I won't say a number of times, eventually I became very withdrawn. I didn't want to serve. I didn't want to assist with chores in the house because of his disposition towards the use of my active hand. And for me, this was something that happens out
naturally.
of reflex. So it wasn't I wasn't deliberately, using the hand to do these things. It's just me. I can't change who I am, but alas, I had a grandpa who wasn't going to have that. So I had to deal with that. I have a supportive mom. She's still alive. But when I left home, I started interacting with the world, more people. And generally, I would say that 70% of people still have issues with using the left hand. And it is not just about them having issues now. It's now a norm to stigmatize left-handed people because there is this negative stereotype that people have, not just when you use the hand, when you want to greet, when you want to give something to people, especially elders. So for them, they think you are ill-mannered, they think you're not properly brought up if you use that hand. But really, your hand doesn't determine whether you're respectful or not. Your body language can actually tell people that you are not cultured, that you are not properly brought up. It's not your hand that determines that.
Okay, you're going to tell us how you were able to deal with it. But I'd like to know, because research shows that most people who are left-handed have someone in their family, maybe alive or dead, who was actually left-handed. Do you have anyone in your family who was left-handed?
Well, for me, I can't point to anybody in the family, but my son is left-handed. So, I also know that I know through research that a number of times left-handedness is hereditary. In fact, some scholars will tell you that if a woman takes in at a particular age, she's most likely going to give birth to a left-handed child.
Really?
So, of course, if I was a medical scientist,
is that scientifically proven?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It is. But generally, left-handedness is hereditary. That is, clearly proven through research.
Yes, I saw that. And now, considering the fact that about 10% of the people in the world are left-handed, and we have some really famous people who are left-handed. I have people like Oprah Winfrey being left-handed. Former governor of Lagos State, Babatunde Fashola, is also left-handed. Why do we still have this stigmatization? Barack Obama is left-handed.
David Cameron.
Why do we still have this issue with the stigmatization of left-handed people?
Well, let me take it from this angle. I think our culture basically is it defines the reason why people still stigmatize left-handed people.
But if you say our culture, even abroad, they are being stigmatized.
Well, considering the fact that advocacy has been on ground there, now let me take it from here. Historically, left-handed people have been stigmatized. Talk of from the 18th, 19th century. In Europe especially, left-handed people were killed. In fact, a number of times they were often publicly ostracized or hanged. They were considered as witches and wizards because, or they were seen as people who practice witchcraft because of their handedness. So as far back as as 18th century, we can say that left-handed people have been stigmatized. But the thing is, time has changed. A lot of things has happened over time, and through advocacy in different parts of the world, the stigmatization has gotten to has been significantly mitigated in some parts of the world.
What of Nigeria?
Nigeria is still at large because we have not really been discussing this issue. Thank God for a day like this. Thank God for an opportunity like this to help create awareness. So I think proper education is important. So when people become properly educated, then we will say we are making progress. More than that, the government needs to be more proactive. Currently, the Nigerian educational system is not inclusive.
Yes, because I was going to come to that.
Okay.
When you check out the classrooms, the chairs made with desks, they are usually designed for right-handed people. And also you have these spiral notebooks, which left-handed people have some difficulty in writing in. Why don't we have that inclusiveness? Is it also a case of awareness, lack of awareness?
Yes, the awareness is still at 1% or 2%.
Even in the educational sector?
Even in the educational sector. And I think one thing that can really help is government policy. Because it's not just enough to create awareness, it's not just enough to talk about these issues. It is more than enough for the government to be completely committed to SDG goal. The SDG goal that would help, drive this kind of advocacy and inclusiveness is SDG goal number 10. So specifically target 2 and target 3 would with a clear-cut plan or a clear-cut framework set out or put in place by the government, I'm sure would be making good progress. And when we ensure that all schools in Nigeria, whether in the city or in the suburb, once we ensure that every school system has an inclusive curriculum, one that caters for the need of left-handed children, making sure that we have left-handed scissors in schools, left-handed seating arrangements, proper teacher training also. When a teacher when teachers are trained to understand that in every class,
because many teachers even try to make left-handed
they try to correct them.
Right.
Exactly. We have more right-handed teachers in schools, and it is generally more convenient for a right-handed teacher to help a child who is learning how to write to use the right. I am writer. Let's say I'm a right-handed teacher. I would be more comfortable teaching a child in my class to use the right hand. But if the child is tends to the left, it will be difficult for me to adjust because I am not left-handed.
So what do you suggest in that case?
So in that case, proper teacher training is important.
So the teacher use the 2 hands?
No, the teacher does not have to use the 2 hands. The teacher just needs to understand that this child is different from the rest. I can only guide. So in guiding, you will know that, oh yes, I need to adjust in order to help this child write with his or her dominant hand.
But do you think a right-handed teacher would be able to guide the left-handed pupil how to write with the left hand?
Definitely.
Because wouldn't you need the use of your left hand to be able to fully understand how the child would write?
I don't think so. If you're right-handed, it might be slightly inconvenient for the teacher to do. You can still use your dominant hand, but you just need to change the seating arrangement or come to the left hand side of the child to assist. For instance, there's a mistake that is generally made in classrooms. You position a left-handed child beside a right-handed child without ensuring that the left-handed child sits on the right end of the seat or the chair. Especially now that we don't have individualized seating arrangements in most schools. A number of times the pupils tend to sit together.
At least 2 on a seat.
2 on a seat. Now, if that is in place, what the school should do is this. A left-handed child is seated beside a right-handed child. I use my left. If a right-handed person is sitting beside me on the left-hand side, it will be difficult for me to write. And it becomes difficult for you to write also. So in trying, you don't want me to inconvenience you, and you would want to speak out. So a number of times, I'm the one who tries to withdraw. So I might not be able to, to give my best academically. And a lot of issues, have been tied to this very social issue we are discussing this morning.
I saw a myth online now. That, how talking about the myth concerning left-handed people, like criminals are more often left-handed, and this one say they are likely to die early. Have you ever been told that before?
Well, it's a myth, just like you said, and that is not true. So a number of factors contribute to people dying early or living longer. But let me say this. Research has also shown that because of the prevalence of right-handed tools that are not that are generally inconvenient or not easy to use for left-handed people, left-handed people are susceptible to dangers, especially in industrial settings, psychological dangers and physical dangers. So talk of psychological, children go through this a lot. if you coerce a child from using left hand to using the right hand, you are disrupting the brain's functionality. This child can suffer from self-esteem issue. The child can be withdrawn. The child can display provocative behavior. In fact, the child might not want to write well. And because of the fact that these tools in themselves are generally comfortable for right-handed people, it becomes difficult for a left-handed child to use. And so the fine motor skills that are required for eye-hand coordination when using these tools are not there for a left-handed person or a left-handed child in a school. The regular scissors around are is right-handed. So it's difficult for a child who is still learning how to cut to use the right-handed scissors. So oftentimes people say left-handed children are clumsy, they are probably not good in crafts, not because as an individual they are not good in doing that thing, but because of the tools that are available. So industrially there are certain tools. Talk of the saw that is often used in furniture industries. They are generally designed to be, they are right-handed tools.
Even let's talk about kitchen utensils.
Yeah.
Because we see a lot of the pots, the ladle. Some of these things are also designed for right-handed people. As a woman, a mother, and someone who has to do some kitchen activities, how do you manage that particular issue? Because I'm not sure that in Nigeria we have too many, because even if we have, they're usually more expensive than the ones designed for right-handed people. How do you manage that?
Well, one thing that left-handed people do well is we have learned to adapt, and that's one strong point. So as much as these are challenges for us, we see that as an opportunity. So for me, as a mother in the kitchen, I have learned to adjust. So I'm able to at least, multitask. I tend to try to adjust using this other hand, even though most of the time this particular hand seems to be more comfortable. So the word is, we have learned to adjust.
Okay, do you think sensitization will help now, going back to our culture, as you said earlier, that because elderly people now, they tell you that you don't use your left hand to do this. We'll say that, okay, they are not well informed in that area of what we do.
Okay, let me say this. At a time in Nigeria and in some parts of the world, especially Africa, people think that if you are HIV positive, once I shake hands with you, I probably contract the disease. But the story has changed now. Why? Advocacy, campaign, sensitization. People are better informed. So even in the local areas, people, even though I'm not going to say that the awareness has gotten to 100% as far as HIV sensitization is concerned, but to a large extent, people in the local areas know that you cannot contract HIV or AIDS by just shaking hands or by eating from the same plate or sharing the same spoon. So the same in the light of that, I think advocacy and proper sensitization, it would go a long way. But
looking at the fact that the people who are left-handed, research has shown that their IQ is at least 140 points higher than that of people who are right-handed. Why is it that we still have the issues with their academic performance? Especially, you mentioned the fact that it affects their psychology when the teachers try to make them use their right hand. But is there any way we can create a balance, especially in leveraging on that IQ, the high capacity they have when it comes to their IQ?
I'll still go back to the Nigerian educational system and the fact that it should be inclusive. Every child has the ability to thrive, even in very difficult situations. So if, for instance, you raise a child in a local area where the child doesn't get access to basic amenities, and the child is committed to succeeding, especially when there is good support in place, even though the support might not be 80% or 90%. If there is 20% support, such a child can do well. But if you take that child to a more civilized, a more developed, a place with better amenities, it's more likely that that child is going to do better than his or her contemporaries. So these, the fact that the brain capacity of left-handed people is considered high, if certain factors impede the development of a child, the child might not be able to thrive, whether the child is left-handed or right-handed.
Now, we're talking about left-handed, we're talking about inclusion now. Are you not painting it as if that, okay, these left-handed people are somehow different from the regular people, that let us accept them to our society?
Well, we are not painting that picture, but sometimes to ensure that people get your message, you need to speak out. And so now it's a big issue because we have a number of social media platforms where people are able to express themselves freely. So at a time I personally felt it wasn't a serious issue that needs to be talked about. But considering the fact that many of my friends and a number of members in our groups have had very bad experiences with people. For instance, you are in a public place, you want to give somebody money, and the driver begins to lash at you, hurls abusive words, and the bad thing now, what that can do to you as a person is either you keep quiet and you absorb the insult. It's either you do that or you talk back, you get angry, and you become violent. What if I had other issues I've been bottling up, and then you just say that and trigger what shouldn't be? And you see, it is important that we create a saner society. So we are not just saying that left-handed people are special in a way, but because of the frustrations that come with our day-to-day interaction with people and the psychological or emotional abuse that is out there, and the fact that it affects a larger percentage of left-handed people, we feel it is important that people are aware.
Okay, so tell us how you were able to deal with the stigmatization. You said that you had a strict father who
grandfather.
No, you said your father made it tough when he discovered you were left-handed.
No, I said my grandfather.
Your grandfather?
Yes.
Oh, okay, so it wasn't your father, it was your grandfather.
It was my grandfather.
So it means you had a relationship with him. For him to have had a say in your being left-handed.
Yes, we were quite close, but because the abuse was getting too much, and I didn't like it. So definitely I can't change my grandfather, and for him, he's a Nigerian, he's an African man. The only thing I could do was to please him, and I didn't want to be at loggerheads with him.
Please him? How?
Now, at a time, I saw that it wasn't going to be easy for me to change who I am. And when I got my voice back, so I made sure that if he says don't do this, I respectfully do that which I feel comfortable with. And I think it's important for every individual, every left-handed adult who has been able to find his or her voice out there. Even if you haven't found your voice, you need to be able to, stand your ground. Stand your ground respectfully, stand your ground humbly. Because the only way you can change people's mindset is when you stand your ground. But if you try to conform, you can't change who you are. And of course, one thing that I will say at this point is, any cultural practice, any belief, any belief system that violate fundamental human rights is inhuman, is an inhuman cultural practice. It's not a sensitive practice, I would say, because if there is a practice, if there is a belief system that contributes to people's emotional abuse or any kind of abuse whatsoever, that kind of practice should not be allowed to
Talking
exist.
about violating human rights, do we have like NGOs, do we have groups that actually fight for those who may have been stigmatized because of their left-handedness?
Currently in Nigeria, there is none. But there are a number of civil rights organizations all over the world, and a few in Nigeria that advocate or campaign against bullying. Sometimes left-handed children can be bullied in school. If, for instance, a left-handed child is writing and there is a right-handed child, and the righty says, "Get off here, you this lefty, why are you disturbing me?" That's a form of bullying. For him, the other child might not know he's bullying or abusing the lefty emotionally, but he is, or she is, as the case may be. So I would say that there are a number of civil rights organizations currently advocating for advocating, no, not the right of left-handed people, but advocating to mitigate stigma and bullying. So generally.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So there are no, sorry, Benga, but so there are no specific organizations that actually look into this particular
There are no
issue.
specific organizations, but we have come up with one.
Okay.
Yes.
So maybe we need to come up with more.
Yeah, we need to come up with more. But now, even though we do not have many right now, our organization, am I permitted to mention the name?
Yes.
Our organization is committed to doing that, and we feel when we create the needed awareness, when we do the necessary advocacy, other groups, other individuals might begin to see the need for this, and before we know it, other organizations will want to partner with us. Currently, in fact, we're in touch with other foreign bodies. There is an organization in the UK, the Lefthanders Club UK. In fact, a number of politicians in Britain have pushed for legislations that would ensure inclusion of left-handed people. Sir Peter Love at the time did advocate for this because he's a left-handed person. So as much as civil rights organizations are committed to creating awareness, doing advocacy campaign, there are well-meaning individuals all over Nigeria. Dr. Ali Pantami, I beg your pardon, is left-handed. Raji Fashola, former Governor Raji Fashola is left-handed. Funke Akindele is left-handed. Veteran actress Yeyetoyin Adegbola, she's left-handed. She lives here in Ibadan, and there are many of them like that. So if we keep doing what we are doing, we'll get in touch with many of these people, and when the awareness is there, when the information is available, before we know it, the
and maybe we need laws and policies to also back up these advocacies.
Absolutely, absolutely. In the light of that, I think the Nigerian government can also ensure that we not only pay lip service to the SDGs. It is important that we actually drive the campaign to ensure that each of the SDG goal, specifically SDG goal number 10 and of course SDG goal number 4.
5 talks about gender equality.
And well, what we are actually advocating for is an end to discriminatory practices, and target 10.3 of the United Nations SDG Goal 10, addresses this issue. And as far as the policy is concerned, SDG 10 also advocate for this in target 10.3. So it is not just something, we are not discussing this because we just woke up and cooked up a story. We are talking about this because the world is doing this. Okay, so the world is currently working on mitigating all forms of inequalities, and one of which is the stigmatization of left-handed people.
It looks like Nigeria is always behind when it comes to issues like this, issues of advocacy. Why is that so?
Well,
you're taking a deep sigh. All right, we'll just wrap up on that note. Do you want to give any parting shots?
Well, I'll say this in closing. Every child should be allowed to thrive, whether left-handed or right-handed. To force a child to use another hand instead of his or her natural hand is trying to coerce that child or to change that child from being who he or she is meant to be. And that in itself is against the Child Rights Act. So I think it is important that the world becomes a better place when we create a sane environment, especially when we ensure that all forms of psychological abuse is mitigated. We have a better world.
All right, thank you so much, Bisola Obiyan. I hope I pronounced it correctly.
You did.
Thank you so much for lending your voice to today's International Left-Handers Day. We'll go on a short break now. AM Cafe continues shortly. Please stay.